talking about imposter syndrome. I did an interview with Samantha a few months ago, in which she shared how she has encountered and overcome imposter syndrome. And in today's session, we will discuss some of the technique that she has applied, her experience, and then we will open up for a open discussion, some of the coaching session where we will talk about your specific situation and how you encounter or how other people feedback on what techniques that we could use. So with that, we'll do a quick round of introduction. I will go first. My name is Vinod. I joined Ship 30 for 30 in April. And then after that, I joined the captain's table as well. And now I'm Admiral. Kelly, do you want to go next?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly. Samantha, great to meet you finally in person. I'm very excited to meet you today. I was telling everybody that you were kind of one of the people that helped me decide to jump into Ship 30. And so that was in April, kind of like Beno. I'm, just excited to be here, join Captain's Table. It's really great to just, learn more about my writing. I've been writing online for a long time. I'm not sure I had any of the structure and frameworks that I've learned. So that's been really important for me and kind of just taking it to the next level. But yeah, I help nonprofits kind of move online and really help them kind of charge forward. It's a bit of a beast where nobody thinks digitally. So I'm kind of hoping to bring everybody along on that. So great to be here. And yeah, nice to meet you, like I said. Thanks.
Adam, do you want to get next?
Sure. I'm Adam Ulrich. It's nice to meet you in the last conversation we had last week. It was I learned a lot through it, and I'm excited to see learn more about the imposter syndrome today. So that's definitely something I feel. It seems like a cyclical thing. But I joined in April of this year, and I hadn't written anything online. So since then, I think I'm on at least writing at least one tweet. I'm getting up to like a day 130 or so. So I'm trying to maintain the habit.
Who doesn't know Susie? Do you want to go next?
Okay, hey, I am Susie Ryan, and I am, my official title is Director of Shipper Success for Ship 30. And basically, I empower people to be their incredibly awesome selves. And once in a while, you might see me posting about the imposter monster that we kick it in the butt and beat him down, put him back in the garbage can like Oscar the Grouch. So I try to use sense of humor for what I do. And my handle, which I think is showing in the thing, says Cat Herding Pro. For 40 years, I have been a professional program director, like a volunteer manager mostly. The techniques for empowering volunteers to succeed are very different than trying to get employees to succeed. So I just come with a different package of viewpoint in how to empower communities and get them to grow. I call it a cross between organizational psychology and project manager. So that's me.
Thank you, Susie. Lance, do you want to go next?
Sure, yeah, I'm Lance Cummings. I'm an associate professor at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I teach and research writing. So I've been doing Ship 30 for a year now, just about. Partly I got into it to see what was going on in the creator economy. Starting a research project on communities of goodwill in the creator economy. And actually starting on kind of a new idea now of the creator classroom, like so how to build pedagogies around the idea of the creator economy is something I've started focusing on this semester. So I just one of the main things I enjoy about Ship 30 is just being a part of the community and seeing the how the good parts of the creator economy function.
And last time we talked about it, that you're planning to utilize some of the mentorship, some of the community aspect that we have in Ship 30 for 30 in your own cohort. So that's amazing. With that, Samantha, we save the last for the best.
Thank you, Vinod. I just want to say thank you for sharing all your stories. I love hearing how people found Ship 30 for 30 and what they're doing and their backgrounds. People are so interesting and have so many interesting stories and experience. So I'm really glad that I got to have a little snippet of you all. And you also, Susie, because I didn't even know much of your story because you got involved in Ship 30 just as I was getting too busy with my business to be involved with Ship 30. So I haven't interacted with you too much. I'm glad you gave a little snippet of your life and experience. So I'll just give you my Ship 30 for 30 quick background. I did it in March of 2021, and I did it feeling like an imposter. And so I didn't really know that my writing and what I would share about with others would be about imposter syndrome, because I was going through it and just feeling like I have things to say. I feel like an idiot when I say them. I feel like they sound stupid. And that's why I don't share anything online. But I started to realize that I needed to put things out there or I never would. And so I didn't really know how to do that. So a bit of the longer backstory is that I worked for the House of Commons of Canada for 12 years. I had my dream job as an event coordinator, which all of that was like a bit of imposter syndrome as well. But I, had a job, and so I must be okay to be there. And then with a micromanaging boss and with having way too much work on my plate, I burnt out. And I realized that on top of the micromanaging boss and also the having too much work on my plate, that my burnout happened because my dream was no longer my dream. And I didn't want to be stuck at a job that would never move, that I couldn't just travel across the world at any point or move to another country because the House of Commons isn't going anywhere. It's stuck in Ottawa. And so I decided during the time off I had to recover from my burnout that I wanted to try to have another life. And so I made the really difficult decision to quit my job. And although I did freelancing and got part-time work and did different things and helped my husband with his online business for 4 years, I didn't do anything for myself, the things that I quit my job for, to write a book or do YouTube videos or start a podcast. Like any of those things, I just kept waiting and waiting for the idea to be clear. I was waiting even more probably for my imposter syndrome to go away. I just sort of thought one day I'll feel like I can do this, and then I will just be able to step into it and it'll feel natural, until I realized that it was 4 years that I hadn't done anything. So I should probably start, because I was 38 at the time and figured I was turning 39 last year. And if I'm not going to do it at 40, like, am I going to do it at 50 or 60? So I need to get this started. So I decided to I found out about Medium. I was looking on there to write. I still didn't write, but I was reading about it and thinking like, I can do this. Like, I could be a writer. I'm a good writer. But writing my own ideas was like a whole other set of imposter syndrome, not just here's the content. Can you write something? Yes, I could do that. But write about my own ideas was so intimidating. So then I realized that these Medium writers were often on Twitter. And so I started to get more active on Twitter. That's where I saw Ship 30 for 30. It was still in its infancy stages. It had just gone through a few cohorts. And I saw these weird essays popping up on my feed from the writers I was following. Thought it was so weird, but it got my attention, and I joined Ship 30 for 30 because on Twitter, I had a really old account, but I had only like 100 followers and they were all dead. They didn't count. So I thought that this was a perfect place for me to write because nobody knows me. So I could just hide in the shadows. I could say whatever and I won't feel so intimidated, even though it's strangers. Like, at least it's not like my friends and family seeing me write inspirational things or sharing my ideas about life. And even if they don't say anything, I feel like I'm being judged all the time. So I did Ship 30 for 30. And at the end of the 30 days, the idea of what I was going to write about still wasn't clear. I thought it would be a miracle and I would figure it out, but I didn't. So I thought, well, I guess I'll just keep going and I'll keep sharing on Twitter. So I did some threads. I was doing Twitter spaces at the time. I wanted to become a better speaker and tell better stories and be a better facilitator and moderator. And so I started hosting and co-hosting spaces. And as you could see, I have no problem now speaking for a long time in a row, where before I would be fumbling and not know how to say things. I would say like and a whole lot more. But by doing the Twitter spaces again and again, I managed to mostly overcome that. I still struggle a little bit. I'm not a professional speaker, but I'm way better than I used to be. So all that to say that through all of these things and these kind of experiments that I did, like I did Ship 30 for 30, I did Twitter spaces. I've not done them for the last few months, but by the end of when I took a break in April, I had done over 150 of them. I've did Tweet 100, where I was putting out tweets every day. I kept having these sort of small experiments that I was running on myself, where I thought, okay, I will put in this time and do this either 30 days or 100 days of Tweet 100, or I'll do 3 weeks of a Twitter space with somebody. And then at the end of it, let me see if this uncomfortable feeling is me hating this and realize this is not what I want to do, or if it's just I was uncomfortable because it was new, because I'm not used to it, and because I'm a human and it feels weird to do things. And over the time of doing all of these experiments, I realized that imposter syndrome was always there at the beginning of when I did something, and sometimes even after I did something for a long time. So for example, with Twitter Spaces, it took me about 20 or 30 of hosting them and co-hosting that I felt like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm not so nervous when I sit down and start to lead them, because before, for all those 20 or 30 at the beginning, I'd always feel that nervousness. And what if somebody interrupts me? And what if I don't know what to say? It took about 50 or 60 before I felt pretty comfortable that I was like, I could just show up, no problem. It was around 70 or 80 that I was like, yeah, I really know what I'm doing. Anybody could say, can you do this space for me? Or if their microphone stops, I could jump in and take over and help them. But that is a lot of time before you feel okay. And so even after that 70 or 80 times of hosting and co-hosting Twitter spaces, I was invited to do a space maybe around the 90th one I did. And it was about hosting Twitter spaces. And I felt like such an imposter, even though I did all of that, even though I did all of these spaces and I explained how to do them to people all the time, being invited to talk about it, I felt like an imposter. And so I was enjoying seeing why I felt uncomfortable and seeing how do I overcome it? Why did this come up? Because I think it's super interesting. And I know that going through something can help other people afterwards when you explain it. And what I've realized through all of these things is that even when you get over the fear of something, sometimes it comes up for no reason at all. And one thing that has really helped me with imposter syndrome is to, number one, realize that it's going to come up for me. I think it comes up for most people. It comes up a lot for people that are high achievers. If you look at like studies and things, they've said that people that are high achievers tend to have a lot of imposter syndrome. It happens a bit more for women than men, but also some of those studies have shown that men have it just as much. They just don't talk about it. And in fact, when I used to talk about it more often, and for a while, I had a practice where I was DMing all my new followers, just to ask them why they were following me, what they wanted to learn about. A lot of men were telling me that they had imposter syndrome, and that's why they followed me. They were curious about it, but there was no women that were saying that. It was just men that would happen to be the ones that would mention that they had imposter syndrome, which I thought was really interesting. And all that to say that having a kind of an end date for a practice. So like Ship 30 for 30, it's the first time I experienced something like that, where all I have to do is this really hard thing for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, I could stop, I could do something else, I could never do this again, or I can continue. But I have to push through these uncomfortable feelings, do these really hard things, and then reevaluate what I want to do. So I have some friends, like my friend Ev, that does essays still to this day. I had other friends that continue doing essays. I have some that only do it during the cohort. I have some that switched over to doing threads. I have some that just continue tweeting, some that abandoned Twitter and didn't want to do it anymore at all. And so I think that what's important is to find something that's a way to kind of stretch yourself so that you can explore the creative side and the thing that you're feeling like an imposter in, and then do it for a set amount of time. And at the end, that's when you evaluate if it's just, I was afraid, I did feel like an imposter, I'm not an expert, and I think that I can be, but I don't want to be saying something that I'm not, especially with the people we see on social media that, you see that they're saying they're an expert and really they're not. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be authentic and honest. And I don't want people to think that I'm not a professor of psychology that studied imposter syndrome or something. So even just talking about imposter syndrome sometimes makes me feel like an imposter, but I just remember that I'm just talking about my experience. And those are mainly the things that have helped me. So I don't know if I gave enough structure of ideas of things, but that's what I have.
Thank you, Samantha, for this insight, as well as your own journey through this. A couple of points that I picked up is you said there is always a feeling that with more experience, you will get there, that you will be over your imposter syndrome. And along with that, I want to share my own experience, and I have seen this with multiple things that I have done in past, and I've seen this with other people as well. About 10, 12 years ago, when I became a manager first time, it was a situation where I know how to handle things technically, but there is so much perception that comes with it, that as a manager, you will be a leader, you will be handling people, you will be managing expectation, you will be managing reviews, all that comes at you. And at that time, I heard a wording, fake it until you make it, which may be a good strategy, but that actually increased your own imposter syndrome, because then you genuinely know inside that you are a fraud. You are just trying to act or make it to be there. And then I think the three other things that act in this type of situation, I mean, my situation was become a manager, but that could apply to anyone in getting into a new role or getting into a new initiative, that you always think what skills and what capabilities you have, right? You have your own assessment. Then you think about what capabilities and skill other people have in this role. And that's pure perception, right? Your own perception. You don't know exactly, or in reality, as Samantha, you was also saying, some people say that they are expert and they do a good job in proposing that, but you have your own perception around in the same role or in the same type of activity, the other people, what type of capabilities and skills and charisma that they have. And then the third thing is your own perception around what this job requires. And all that, you create a big picture inside your head. And instead of navigating, just like how you said, Samantha, that take one day at a time, 30 days at a time, and navigate through it, instead of thinking, if you have all these that other people have and your perception of this job, then you will feel confident and not and you will be able to overcome your imposter syndrome. So that cycle never stop unless you are comfortable being uncomfortable in that new role and start navigating with the confidence. And I will stop by saying that, by saying this one skill in these type of situation, your perception of all these new skills sometimes hinder what you already have and transferable to this new position. For example, when Susie asked me for being an admiral, she also added a comment, and I'm so thankful for you, Susie, but she said, you have done so much corporate trainings. You have done so many other things as in your 9-to-5 job. And I immediately realized that I have built corporate-wide intranet for 90,000 people. For that, we have done a train the trainer module. So I not only did a high-level strategy of how we will send this message, train this new intranet, and we divided that into the philosophical part of it, like thinking about what content that you need to put on your page that is targeted to your audience, such as nurse. And then how to do that, right? Why, what, and how. We structure that. I have my team train the trainers, which is about 100 people. We traveled to these locations, 50 hospitals, and we have done all that. And that realization is suddenly kicks in. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm one of the perfect person to do that. But initially, if you talk about, I'm new creators, right? From the writing point of view, it was uncomfortable, but then I was able to bring all my transferable skills from my 9-to-5 job to here. So that's kind of my take, kind of summarize that that was my experience. And most of the things are in our head that we overthink, we think about other people, we think about what the job need, and sometimes we overshadow the abilities and capabilities we already have. So let's keep moving. So Samantha, you shared your experience. I wanted to ask the guest audience here, what was your one situation or scenario where you felt the imposter? I felt like Kelly wanted to speak.
I've had a ton of them. I'm just trying to kind of zero in on maybe a specific story, but I don't know. I've worked with a lot of really strong people, lots of great personalities, some crazy personalities, things like that. That I know you know, as a consultant, I often think that I'm, you know, they give me a lot of responsibility to help an organization move forward, whether it's through donations or volunteer management, that sort of thing. And I don't know, sometimes that kind of knocks around my imposter syndrome. It's like, what do I know about, you know, you guys? I can only kind of help based on the information you've shared with me. There's a lot of that stuff going on. And I don't know, I could tell you a list and we don't have enough time, but I think as I've grown a little older, I realized that we're all just doing what we can at any given moment. And it's, you know, you base it on your experience, you base it on learning from others, and you come across people who never do any of those things too. So, you know, I think we're all almost maybe winging it, you know, and I think if we all kind of realize that we're all doing that and we work together better, we learn how to collaborate, we learn how to listen, we learn how to speak really well to one another, I think a lot of great things can happen. And so I hopefully depend on that. It can get a little negative at times, but you know, it's great. I love my work. At the end of the day, I help these organizations, you know, raise money for what they need to do. And if I can continue doing that and helping them make it better and easier, then I think we'll continue building, you know, that I'm okay to help people do this. So I don't know, just taking a really positive look is my number one way to do it. So thanks.
And you made a very good point that when we feel that we are winging it, that's where some of the imposter come from. But understanding many other people are doing the same thing, like our perception of them being really strong or holistic may not be right at some point. They may be feeling the same thing and they may start it like that. So that's a great point. Who want to go next? Lance?
Sure. in general, if I'm being honest, I don't think I suffer much from imposter syndrome, but it's a big thing in academia for graduate students and for new professors. They suffer a lot from imposter syndrome all the way up, probably until your chancellor. Probably the chancellor has imposter syndrome, but I haven't had much of a problem with that, except that I do fear criticism, or like one of my issues with writing online on Twitter, why I never did it is because I keep thinking about how other people in academia would read my tweet and the wrong way, right? And so like just not put that out there kind of thing. But I do, I do work with graduate students and interns that have imposter syndrome, and I think it's worse in academia because there is so much criticism and not very professors aren't very good at encouraging people a lot of times, and focusing on the good things. And we feel like it's our responsibility to point out all the things that are wrong or need work, or those kind of things. And this whole idea of gatekeeping too, like okay, if you can't make it through grad school, then you don't deserve to be whatever. And so it's a I think it's a big problem in academia, and I try to lessen the problem myself with students, while also giving them honest help and in the world of academia. But yeah.
Can I make a comment on the criticism piece? I think that also we need to find the ways to learn from the criticism, right? I'm with you. Like, it's hard to get all this criticism. I don't even like the word, but if somebody's telling me that, we could think about it this way, and I learn how to take that, like, I'm not sure I was ever given those tools. So maybe there's someone that can share tools on Samantha, that's your next post, how to deal with the criticism and what to do about it, right? It's like, I talk to my clients often, like, listen to what's going on, listen to what they're saying. But most of the time their heads are in the clouds. They're thinking about what project is next, but they're not really listening. And I think if we all learn to listen and then take criticism in a positive way, and maybe changing that word because it just seems so negatively charged. But anyway, just some things to think about. But criticism can help us learn to go a different way, perhaps.
And I would add that, yes, to do what Kelly said, but at the same time, there are some criticism that you purely want to just ignore and not let that criticism impact your confidence or change the direction that you have.
Yeah, and I would say the problem in academia is, number one, we're not nice. A lot of times professors are not nice about their criticism, but also they don't give the reasoning behind the criticism. This paper isn't going to get published, it's not going to work, but not tell them why and what they could do in their eyes to make it work. But so I think that's often the problem, is that we're just not, giving the criticism, but giving an action step to point them, or choices to make, like, okay, here's what I think about this, but you can do this or this to kind of move this project further, or, take this action to see if you can move this, in the direction that you need to go. I think that's kind of a key that's often missing from the way we mentor our students.
And
Yeah.
I think, go ahead, Susie.
And that is one thing I think that maybe just my particular personality. I've dealt in my my professional life, like my day job was not always working with nonprofits, right? That was like my fun stuff, right? So the day job for the first half of the career was working in financial law. Okay, just as a summary, right? And the only way I can describe to you really how you have to really be thick-skinned is I was dealing with people that you do not want to get between them and their 6-figure commissions when, these folks are, vying for loans and trying to, get business for their bank. So I'm very thick-skinned that way. I don't take things personally. The biggest thing that I can offer anybody is just remove the emotion you're hearing or experiencing from the words that are being delivered. Somebody's experience what they read, maybe that you posted, maybe it just flagged a really bad memory, and that's what their knee-jerk tap, 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 tap on something you wrote is. It has nothing to do with you personally, right? But they have 280 characters in Twitter. That's all they got. So you're not going to get a lot of context, unfortunately. And I mean, you can usually find the trolls types, and you just, there's this really cool feature called delete and block. Right? So, you don't have to accept haters. Okay. I'm just going to say, if somebody, posts something and you're kind of scratching your head, like, what did they mean by that? The first course of action is I click on their account and see what they're writing about. Try to figure out what their perspective is, because you could go back and forth and get nowhere except aggravated. And life is too short for you to be caught in drama that somebody can't possibly explain to you because they're at a point in their particular experience where they can't yet explain it. So don't take it personally. Just take what you can from it, and that's it. That's it. Don't give it any more weight than what it is at face value. If you can take something and it's helpful, wonderful. But if it's not, don't feel you have to get sucked down a rabbit hole going back and forth about it. So that's my little psychology lesson there for you for the day. Yeah, try to keep your sanity and
Thank you, Susie. So, so obviously, criticism is one of the element that can create imposter syndrome. And based on this discussions and based on our own experience, there are 3 things are happening, right? The anticipation before the criticism even happened. So as Lance said, that sometimes we don't put up things out there because we have this perception that somebody would say this or that, right? So there are emotions before you do something related to criticism, and then when the criticism actually happened, then there are some emotions, then there are some of the things are happening, and then finally what you do with the criticism, meaning once that happened, what is the after effect? And there are 3 possible. One is you take that criticism and do something positively around it. Obviously, that criticism have to be good enough, right? As Kelly said, that what you can do, how you can improve from that. And then second is ignoring it, because as we all know, Susie pointed out that there are some just unhappy people, angry people who could say something. So those type of things that you want to just delete and ignore. And then the third thing is how that affect you for doing the next activities, because before you have the perception of a criticism may happen, but then based on the criticism that has happened, now it's a slightly different and stronger emotions, right? And depending upon how well you're handling that one criticism can affect you. And again, everything is in your mental, where you're thinking about it, you're anticipating something, and that changing your behavior, that changing your direction. So handling that, I say the most important piece is how you handle your perception before the criticism happened, your emotions and perception, and then how you handle it after that happened, right? So those are some of the critical pieces. So great point, Lance. I'm going to come back and ask you how you handle, as you said, you don't have you don't encounter imposter syndrome much, so I'm going to come back to that. But before that, I wanted to go to Adam and ask Adam, share some scenario, if you like, where you felt imposter and how you handle it.
Frequently, whenever I make a big change, I'll encounter that imposter syndrome feeling. So, past couple of years, I went back to school and I was working on a blue collar role, and just taking that step, it was one thing to do the online classes, but then the next step to earn the bachelor's degree was a cohort based program in person, right? So that was huge change, different kinds of people being surrounded by, all the time. And I had a lot of fears going into it. So what I typically do is just try to build up momentum. And as I've gotten older, there's different things I have to manage that don't allow me to take the same approach. So currently, momentum doesn't always work. You can't just bull your way through repetition in some cases. So right now I'm trying to determine a different approach to it, which to the point of this discussion probably relies on a lot more reflection and gauging how does that individual situation impact me objectively. Writing has definitely been another one for the imposter syndrome feeling as well. It seems to be, like I mentioned earlier, very cyclical. Sometimes there's traction, other times there's nothing. And, so then you question if you're not getting anything, well, I know I need to change something. But if you think about it too much, then, it's easy to hurt your creative flow. Thanks.
And Adam, you said build momentum. Can you expand on it?
Yeah, sure. So it would be basically you're just going all in on whatever you're doing. So you're just putting all of your energy toward it, thinking about it. You're staying so busy with it that you don't have a chance to think about a different outcome other than just trying to accomplish whatever the goal is that you see.
Wow. I am glad that I asked that question, because initially I thought it's similar to doing the activity initially for 3 days, 30 days, but I think what you're saying is slightly different. So you're saying build momentum by consuming yourself into that idea, focus, and just thinking about that.
Yes, yeah, it's if you're focusing on your project, right? Anything that's related to that project, you're trying to just put all of your energy toward it and avoid distractions. And like I said earlier, it was a lot easier to do when I was a little bit younger with fewer things going on. So now, how do you juggle the distractions while still building momentum?
Susie, you?
Probably I'm going to say very similar to Adam. I was just actually typing a little thingy there in the chat. When I'm working on something, I am obnoxiously OCD focused on that thing. It's not always, for my best health benefits. I wrote something recently on, burning rubber, going 200 miles an hour, and then, all of a sudden you hit a wall with like burnout, and why at my age, I don't recognize the signs before that happens. Still working on that for me, but for all intents and purposes, yeah, I get in, I get my head down, and I just boom, and that's how I have always been. So it's definitely, yeah, I focus on the thing I'm working on, and I'm very project oriented. So maybe that's just my particular MO, my personality that does that. But it does, you don't have time to think about other stuff, what anybody else is thinking at that point. I'm focused on what I'm doing, putting in my best effort for the thing. I mean, for me, like in academia, when I finally said, okay, I am figuring out what I want to be when I grow up, and this is like, I'm talking in my 50s. All right. When I finally dove into getting the degree and finishing it. And to me, there was not going to be any second place option. It was going to be 4.0 or bust. So I did that, got this lovely little yellow cord added to my to my wall. Is it bringing me everything I thought it would be? I don't know. I honestly can't say that I really thought too much further at the time. I was simply muscling through it at the time.
What that yellow card is?
Sorry?
What What's the context for that yellow card?
Oh, the yellow cord was the summa cum laude, the 4.0 for the bachelor's.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
4.0 GPA.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now I get it. Now I get it. Okay, I didn't get it in my MBA, so I sure. Samantha, based on everything that you have heard from different challenges that different people face, I would like to ask you what's your take, what type of techniques or method or steps that you would suggest in some of these situations?
Everyone has such good ideas of how they manage their imposter syndrome in here. I'm sometimes when I've talked to people, they have zero idea. So it sounds like most people found ways to work through either the perceived criticism or actual criticism or their own fears. I think one of the big thing is what Adam said, which is that you just got to like push through it. And sometimes when I was in Twitter spaces and people were asking me for more, I don't know, practical examples, the thing is that you just have to do it. And as I was drafting a book for imposter syndrome and writing out things and processing my thoughts about how I've dealt with it and how I've overcome and things, mostly what I would get down to is just it's going to be there and you just have to get used to the uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it goes away and sometimes it comes back when you least expect it. Kind of like when I did that Twitter space about Twitter spaces, and I had done almost 100 Twitter spaces, and that was the one that I was so nervous to talk about. And then it was one of the easiest ones when I did talk about it. I really thought that I would have nothing to say about how to host Twitter spaces. I was just going to say, you show up and people sometimes come in the room and you talk and that's it. But for 2 hours, I answered questions and I had things to say. And I think that maybe that's where a lot of imposter syndrome comes from as well. We're just, like you mentioned earlier, that you didn't realize that your corporate experience could translate as well to a creative side where we just take for granted the experience and the things that we've done because it's come natural, and kind of like how we can't even see our own talents or what we're good at because we usually don't do it consciously. We just do it. So for example, in my jobs, I was mostly an admin assistant. I then did like some project management with that and moved on to being an event coordinator. But really, my best talents are being nice to people, motivating people, talking to people, which helped in my event job, helped when I was giving people second language tests so they can get a job. In the event job, it's how I had such great networking relationships. I just like talking to people. And so I would go in person to talk to our caterer, and I would go in person to talk to the guys that would set up the room, just because I thought like, oh, I'll just talk to them in person and know what I look like. But then when I left the job and worked somewhere else for a little while, they would say that they missed me and they liked working with me. But mostly it was just because that's what I'm actually really good at, but I was never given that as a job. And kind of, I have this tweet that I've used a few times, a few variations of it that's been popular about leadership. And so some of us, like me, I'm a born leader. I like leading people, but I don't seek it out or try to make people make me the leader, but I'm pretty good at it because I like people and I know how to communicate with them. But nobody's ever given me that title. I haven't been the manager of somebody or been promoted to have employees under me. And so I don't see myself that way, but it doesn't mean that that's not something that I'm good at. And so with imposter syndrome, I think that an aspect of it can be that we can just know something so well or have it be so natural that it feels like it's weird to share about. And on the other hand, when you're also a person that things come naturally easy to, and then you have to do something that's a little bit tougher, it could feel like you're an imposter because, oh, everything's always so easy for me that now it's hard. My older daughter is 15. She's going into grade 10. And she had this revelation a few weeks ago. She was like, Mom, I realized that high school's just not that hard, but for a few things it's hard. And I really don't like it because everything has always been so easy that when it is hard, she was like, I realize I have to actually try. And I wasn't used to it, but at least she realized that this is a pattern that she's going to have when she goes into university and things. So she's working through it. But I think that the the thing with imposter syndrome, and this may not answer the question exactly, is that there's so many ways that it could show up. It could be in, like I said, you know something so well, and so you don't feel like you have much value to add. Or it could be that you've never been given a title of something, but you're naturally good at it. And so you can speak about it, and maybe it'll take some time to establish yourself as an authority in it. Or it could be that you're now doing something that's a little bit tough for you because you haven't done that before. And I hadn't written online or been vulnerable to share, inspirational thoughts or try to motivate people, even though I motivate people one-on-one. If I have a conversation with people, I always ask about what are their dreams, what would they like to do, just because I like it. I like to ask people that, but I just felt so cheesy if I wrote something on Instagram about it, and then I would see that friends and family would see it and nobody would say anything. And I was like, I must sound like so weird. So then I just wouldn't share it. And so I think that really what it all comes down to is just your own self-awareness, being aware of who you are, your personality, how you fit in with others, what triggers you, what doesn't trigger you. And then when you are triggered by something, whether it's criticism, feeling like an imposter, feeling like overwhelmed, burnt out, whatever the thing is, all of it just means, is this thing me? Is it others? Can I change it? What can I do? Should I do less? Should I do more? Should I rest? Should I keep pushing through? It's so hard even to explain that, that everything is so personal. And the only thing that we can do is listen to other people's stories and how they've pushed through things, how they've let things go, how they've learned to rest, how they gave themselves permission to do something. But then really think and get in touch with who we are inside and think about, is this what I need right now? Is it that I'm being lazy, or is it that I need a break? Or is it that I'm really scared of this because I haven't done it? It's so personal that you could try the frameworks, you could do ship 30 for 30 and push through. And then at the end, think about, am I still an imposter because I really don't like writing online? Maybe I like speaking, or maybe I don't even like having something. I thought I wanted a creative outlet, but maybe you don't. And I think that everything is okay. And that's one thing that maybe people are talking about more these days, but definitely when I was younger, nobody talked about just giving yourself permission to observe yourself and then to make your life the way that fits best for you. Sometimes it means pushing through imposter syndrome, and sometimes it means imposter syndrome means this is uncomfortable for me and I don't like it and I don't want to do that.
Awesome. Great. Anybody has any comments on what Samantha just said?
I just want to thank you for your posts all the time, because they do encourage and motivate me. So thanks, Samantha. It's good.
That was so powerful. So I didn't want it to do injustice by quickly speaking, but you brought so many points, Samantha. And I'm going to go back to the same example that I started with, where I said, when I became a manager, I adopted fake it until you make it. And by doing that, I was trying to impersonate some of the managers that I admire. Not a bad strategy, but when I became a senior manager, I had the exact same opportunity. I failed in first 6 months. Then I had to go through the coaching sessions with my executive coaching in the office. One of the things that she realized, and she helped me, that I was not being myself. And there are other things, such as I was not expressing the feeling that I'm going through to myself as well, right? I was just trying to how I am supposed to act in this situation, how I'm supposed to react to the situation versus being me, myself, like feeling this happens and how does it make me feel, right? There was a missing element there. And your point of be yourself is very powerful, in which you have to actually know who you are what's your value, what you stand for, and what you like, what you does not like, and this feeling, this entire act of feeling, or entire area where, believe it or not, most people does not know how to kind of understand what they feel in different situations. They don't even know all the different type of feeling that they can have. And sometimes you have to go through these mental health counselor or EAP services to be able to understand all different type of feeling that you go through. But the point is, when you start understanding who you are, what you stand for, what you feel, then you can be yourself, and be your natural reactions, or natural what comes from inside, right? Oh, somebody left, Kelly left. And then I want to add what SHIP 3430 has taught us. There is one particular element that they have brought, that be specific, narrow it to be very specific. So whatever that situation is, whatever that you're trying to do, if you can narrow it down to a very specific thing that you have to address right now, then it you will be much better, and and you will be able to handle your imposter syndrome in that way. um, for example, uh, well, I don't think I have an example right now, but just by utilizing that technique has helped me in many of the situation. Now when I handle that, I try to analyze that this is what I need to do, and these are the skills that I have that can be applicable, and forget what other people think about this position, what they have, or what I think about the job. This is what in this particular job, or this project, or this initiative, this is what people need to do, and this is what I bring to the table. And if I don't have, can I bring someone else to help, right? So those type of techniques that and I really like the point that be yourself. It's really hard because most of us, sometime, I'm not saying everybody, but at least in my case, I did not know myself, right? Who I am, what I stand for, what's my major skills and all. We are at 11. I do want to go back to Lance for a second, because to ask him how you have handled this, and then after that, I want to take a selfie. So do all have another 5 minutes or so? Okay. I should have taken the selfie before. So next time I will do that in the session. Len, so you said you don't feel imposter much often. So what worked for you? How you reached to this level?
It's a good question, because I'm not sure. I mean, whenever it comes up, I always think, well, why don't I why don't I have this? Because I mean, it's an issue. But I mean, in some ways, I mean, you mentioned fake it until you make it. Like I just focus on doing the projects and things like that, and then build confidence that way. I mean, and also I guess there's an understanding too that everybody, maybe the further I get into academia, the more I realize that pretty much everybody has nobody feels like super confident in the role that they're playing. Like even our new chancellor is probably got some imposter syndrome. So it's like it's a kind of a form of discipline to kind of just work past that, right? Like so I think that's just maybe part of my nature. I don't know, but I mean, just realizing that everybody there is no such thing as somebody perfectly belonging somewhere, right? Like everybody's working on, becoming better at whatever they're doing. So we're all kind of in the same boat. And I think that's part of this whole communities of goodwill thing, right? It's like, sharing the struggles that we have shows that everybody else has similar struggles, instead of like pretending that we are Nicholas Cole and Dickie Bush, which, I mean, actually, if you look at that, you look at how they share their things, they share, their own struggles and their weaknesses and those kind of things. And I think that helps everybody else feel comfortable claiming the badge, digital writer, right? Because, Nicholas Cole and Dickie Bush went through the same things I'm going through right now. And I feel like, so maybe community is the answer to imposter syndrome.
Thank you. That was great insight. Welcome, Dr. Paul.
Thank you. I thought I wasn't going to make it, but I had a chance to, my 3-year-old grandson stayed overnight with us, and it's like launching a boat to get him to the next place. But it's a huge amount of fun.
Well, you will be part of the selfie, so that's an accomplishment for us to have you. So I will go ahead and take a selfie, basically the screenshot, and then I will post it. So give me a second. I think I know the keys. So 3, 2, 1. All right, 1 second. Nope. All right, one more time. Okay. Okay, got it. So thank you everyone for joining today. And Samantha, special thanks to you. Always fun having a podcast or an interview with you. Dr. Paul, I will share the recording, and we had a good discussion overall. Everybody shared their, so whoever want to drop off, please do so. I want to give a few minutes to Dr. Paul. We'll have an introduction from him, as well as what are the imposter syndrome that Dr. Paul may have faced and how he encountered, and then we will close today. So whoever can stay, please, and whoever have some other commitment, please feel free to drop off. And thank you, everyone. So Dr. Paul, I wanted to spend a few minutes with you. So please, quick introduction, and then have you ever faced imposter syndrome and how you handled it?
That's like, I ask people all the time, do you have an inner critic? And who doesn't? In fact, I have a friend who calls it her shitty committee. Show up. Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is, it's another nice name for inner critic. In fact, some research about it. The two ladies who created the term imposter syndrome back in the 70s, they were looking at why women's have hit the glass ceiling. And they said only women deal with imposter syndrome. Well, I think that research was off a little bit.
Oh, Samantha actually shared that exact same insight. So I will share with you what she said, but please go ahead.
I had a crash and burn 30 years ago, 40 years ago, out of my own imposter syndrome inner critic. I used to call it work addiction. I'm now calling it stress addiction. It wasn't the work, it was the stress. In fact, addiction to cortisol, it can be as addictive as adrenaline or any other internal component. And out of that, I did a doctorate of ministry, and my research was around internalized shame. Today, I would call it internalized shame and trauma, and which is behind all of our inner critics. We have I have an exercise I do in a seminar. It's just called going from point A to point B. And it's like 2 chairs set up in front of other people, and there's music. Everybody has to go a different way. And it's like terror sets in. Somebody else is taking mine. I say that because a lot of us are still sitting on point A.
Mhm.
To step from point A to point B, you got to step into nothingness. You got to step into I have no idea what I'm doing. And the fear of disappointing, the fear of not meeting expectations is huge. Now, the truth is, nobody can do it the way you do it because you're a different person, but nobody knows that. But I still find myself with an inner critic that comes up periodically of, I must not disappoint. I must not be disappointing. That goes back to childhood and all that stuff. And so a couple of years ago, in addition to the work I've done on shame, is I started working with a process called focusing, where we develop an inner relationship with our inner critic, assuming all of our emotions are for us. And so rather than criticizing it or shutting it down, rather wondering what it's trying to tell me. Our bodies have great wisdom when we listen to it. And so that's what I've been doing now for 30 years.
Wow. I would be honest that what you have shared is really deep, and I think I got 40% of it. I will have to watch the recording a couple of times to fully understand you said, because there was so much depth to it. And initially I was saying that when we do something, a new initiative, new initiative, you start thinking about what you have, your own abilities, your own skills. Then you think about the other person doing the same thing, what their skills, what their abilities are. And then you get your own perception about the job, that what this job need. Again, all these are in your head. And you added that not meeting expectations from others, right? So all those
and imagined expectations.
Yes, right. Sometimes you don't have that clear discussion with if it is a 9 to 5 job, right? You don't have that clear expectation from your supervisor or your boss. Or if you are in the creator lane, then obviously you don't have clear expectation from your audience anyway. So all that plays with your mind, and that creates some kind of emotion that you're not good enough, you are faking it, you are a fraud. Right. And then it just grows in your head, right?
Yeah.
So
you live a kind of performance life rather than an authentic life.
Yeah.
I refer to it today when I work with clients as living in virtual unreality. We don't have to have glasses to have virtual unreality.
Yeah.
But it's artificial. It's not real necessarily. It's our own imaginations.
Awesome, Dr. Paul. It seems like I want to do a separate session just with you on this.
Well, let me, if I could add one more thing. You know, the challenge that I've had in terms of my niche, kind of really identifying a niche, is that it sounds negative. If your life's not working, if you're stuck with inner critics and so forth, then it's really like if your life's a mess, come see me, which is not exactly a great approach. So now I've switched to, it's not enough to empty the inner critics. It's not enough to empty the blocks to creativity. It's about how do I fill up with flourishing?
Okay.
How do I find, and the 5 things. One is positive emotions. How do I have engagement, really, and get into flow. How do I have positive relationships or not sucking life out of me? How do I find my own meaning and purpose? To be authentic is not just authentic with others, but to be authentically with myself. And then to have accomplishments that I have pride about, a sense of accomplishments. So flourishing is kind of like, okay, let's take the part that has been blocked by imposter syndrome or inner critics, and let's move it into a positive place. There's a story. It's actually a scriptural story, but it has lots of roots, about a house that has a life-taking spirit, and it's empty and cleaned, but left alone. And then the life-taking spirit comes back and brings other life-taking spirits because it wasn't filled with life-giving spirits. Just fixing what's in our way is never enough. Finding a way, the flourishing part is critical. So that's my new niche.
Nice. Congratulations for finding that, because you will be able to help so many people with that.
Thank you.
All right. So any comment from anyone before we close out today?
This was great. I appreciate this conversation. I've been taking some notes here. I have a question for you, Dr. Paul, about the addiction to cortisol. I've heard of addiction to dopamine, but never to cortisol. That one's unique. Well, how does that work?
Well, when you think about our defense mechanisms, I hide, I pretend, I avoid conflict, I play the nice guy. When I do those, I'm not consciously thinking about them. When I do those, suddenly I feel safer than not doing them. And if you do some Googling, you'll see that cortisol can be as addictive. I mean, the safe feeling of being safe from fear is addictive. When we try, 30 years, I've been helping people overcome their shame, their self-limiting tapes, their defense mechanisms that are robbing their life. And it's hard to go back. It's hard not to do them because they're so natural. They're almost addictive. And when you ask somebody, okay, let's stop hiding, let's stop avoiding conflict, let's start speaking truthful, it's like you're asking them to go cold turkey from a defense mechanism. That's why community is so important.
It makes a lot of sense. Is that high levels or low levels, or does the level, like the spike of cortisol from actions, make a difference? It's just
I don't know the chemical piece, but if you do, I've just run into the cortisol addiction.
Okay.
Yeah, but stress. I mean, I used to talk about work addiction, but I don't think it was work addiction. I think it was stress addiction. I love the stress. If things were going well, that's boring. And so I would find myself, this is a confession, I would find myself creating stress in the organization in order to be the guy who could come in and save the day. Now, I wasn't conscious, that's I wasn't sabotaging, but I would see crisis where there wasn't any crisis. Because I got a high off of it.
I'm laughing because I have worked with the people who have created a stress, but this is my own observation. When things are really tough, when some of the things that I do is related to bringing people together. And when there are situations where we know that there is no way we can make this release, and this release is very crucial, I feel energy inside me.
Yes.
So, right now, many people have left my team or the department, and there are panic situation that everybody is leaving, something is wrong, and all that. And I feel tremendous amount of energy to bring how I can bring it to normal, right? I'm trying to see opportunities there, how I can align people, use this as an opportunity to bring people which is more aligned to how we work now and 2 years from now. So I face that, Dr. Paul,
Yeah.
that these situation gives me tremendous energy.
Yes.
So I can echo what you're thinking.
And it can be very positive, life-giving energy when it's my passion, when it's my purpose. My experience is when people don't really know their own purpose and passion, they will substitute drama for passion. If I have meaning, I can get into the flow. You're talking about getting into the flow of being engaged, which is a positive thing, as opposed to using stress to avoid authenticity and facing the situation.
I mean, it could be that's where I will go and research that. I was thinking this way, but I'm like you. If things are normal, then I'm not that operational person, right? To keep things running in routine, same routine is not something that I enjoy.
Yeah, that's why I don't see clients. I mean, I see individual for spiritual direction and coaching and so on, but I don't see a client for a year. My goodness, I couldn't handle that. 3 or 4 sessions. let's do something else.
So great. I'm gonna go back and check. Maybe I'm addicted to cortisol. Thank you for asking that, Adam.
When we can be in touch with our body, will tell us. We can be in touch with our body, and the wisdom of our body, it will guide us. It will lead us. It will tell us. But not when we're critical of it or judgmental of it or negative. And finding a way to take the steps to have an inner relationship with what's going on in our body. Quick steps. You got to change the language from I'm angry or I'm upset or I'm scared to something in me feels.
Yeah.
Upset. Suddenly it's smaller than I am.
Yep. Yep.
I can say hello to it because it's probably been there a dozen times before. When I feel it in my stomach and my chest, the pressure, just simply putting a hand there and acknowledging it, sometimes it reduces. It's like, oh my God, he's paying attention to me. And being curious and wonder, okay, I wonder where that's coming from. I wonder what that's about. And then when something comes up, it's like, well, no wonder that's coming up, because I remember when I was 8 or 9, I was, whatever. And so no wonder becomes a self-compassion expression. Well, no wonder something in me is upset or anxious or scared. Those are just the first few steps of that process.
Sorry, my daughter came, so there was
No
some.
problem. No problem. So,
Any other point from anyone? Dr. Paul will be my best friend moving forward. I'm gonna send you DMs. I'm gonna
go for it.
I would like to hop on a call with you as well, Dr. Paul. I know we had rescheduled once. I'll try to get something, and again, I'll
Okay.
find your link. And
DM me and I'll send you my calendar link. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul, for hopping in.
Glad I could.
I will share the recording with everyone, and I will also post it in the circle as well as DM. So awesome. Thanks all.
thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.